Day 269 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. And as always, I'll start off with those Russian military losses. So as of the 19th of November, in the last 24-hour reporting period, there's been an additional 420 or so Russian military personnel losses. So currently sitting on 83,880 approximately. Then we'll quickly take a peek at the Russian hardware losses. So armored combat vehicles, 7 there, tanks an additional 6, and artillery 2. Now we'll jump back to the map today where we'll start out, or maybe a bit more generally, and I'll say where the first signs of winter are upon us in Ukraine, as the first snowfall lands at many locations throughout Ukraine, but predominantly in the west, so near Lviv and more centrally like the capital of Kyiv as well, but not so much the Donbass. That might be a couple of weeks behind. And this quick clip is of a Ukrainian T-64 enjoying the snow in its winter camouflage, just enjoying itself with a skid, or in the commonly accepted sports car vernacular, drifting. And we'll start out today in the Russian Federation, so at the location of Novorossiysk, so it's right there, where it's been reported that a Ukrainian maritime drone attack occurred and exploded last night. Now, the Russian sources advised that it was the exact same Ukrainian drone as the one used in the Sevastopol attacks on Russia's naval fleet, I should say, from just a few weeks ago on the 31st of October, I believe. Now, attacks like these have wide-ranging implications for the Russian naval fleet stationed in the Black Sea. For starters, this means that Ukraine has the operational capability to threaten the Russian naval fleet from about 500 miles or about 750 kilometers. In fact, I might just pop up the ruler for that and say leaving from here to here. Nope, it's not a plane, it's a boat. So I'll do the ruler again. Let's say they go to here and then go across. So 650 kilometers, so they're about 400 miles or so. And moreover, Russian sources themselves initially reported that the drone struck the Shescaris oil terminal in the port city, which is certainly a strategically valuable target. However, not long after the Russian news outlets reported this, they actually took their stories down, seemingly for perhaps Russia to avoid the embarrassment of this happening. Now, for a bit of a quick backstory on the Black Sea region. So during the beginning of the war this year, Russia had uncontested control over the Black Seas. Then on that fateful day of April 15th this year, Ukraine took out the Russian pride of the Black Sea Fleet, the Moskva, which you can actually still see the marking for right here on this very map. It was just too damn close. So Russia's reaction to this Moskva sinking in earlier this year was that it had to end up pulling back most of their naval fleet to places like Sevastopol and exactly right here, like Novorossiysk, which then evidently gave Russia or the Russian Navy a false sense of security. But hey, sometimes a false sense of security is the only kind there is. So anyway, this most recent undetected attack, until the very end of course, is all a little too close for comfort for Putin. Considering that one of his homes, also dubbed Putin's Palace, is not too far away, about 30 miles from the incident. In fact, this map is quite low res for what I'd like to show you, so I'm going to quickly jump to Google Maps and we'll find Putin's Palace. So zoom in there, and there it looks to be. Great, that's the one right there. So we'll pop on the satellite and we'll show you this mansion monstrosity in high res, or fairly high res. So there you go. It's got quite the port or jetty there as well. So we're talking really just 30 miles from the incident there. Incident location, a little bit further. There we go, up there. And what this means in the end is that Russia's ability to project naval power is becoming increasingly scarce in the Black Sea. Then we'll move across to the Donbass region. So heavy battles rage in and around the Luhansk region up the north. So we are talking about Novosibirsk. And we've also got some reports of some credible ones that Pavlovka, just southwest of Svatova, is nearly liberated by the Ukrainian forces as well. So I'll just quickly zoom in and show you that there. Here it is around this location. Then in the Bakhmut region, so we have some shoot-down footage of one of the most advanced Russian fighter planes taken down by the Ukrainian armed forces. The Russian Su-35S series accomplished all with the help of the recently received American/Norwegian NASAM complex air defense system. Now the Su-35Ss are fourth generation fighters, fourth generation plus. So the cutting edge before any of, say, the stealth planes that some countries have. And these are some of the costliest planes for Russia, going for about $85 million a piece. So converted to US dollars there. But it's not just the figure there, because these planes are actually priceless now due to economic sanctions placed on Russia, which requires many pieces of Western tech needed to assist in producing these planes. Then we'll move across to the south area of the Donbass. So Russian forces continue to shell Pavlovka and Volodar quite heavily at the moment. They're really throwing everything they've got onto this battleground to take Pavlovka in particular, it seems, before the winter arrives very soon. In fact, they're even using incendiary munitions, which are illegal by the Geneva Convention standards to use in civilian areas. And the more common phrase for this illegal Russian weapon of choice is sometimes referred to as carpet bombing, a term you may have heard before. And by my count, this is about the fourth time in this war that Russia has used this method or this weapons type. So I would say that they're in low supply. Well, I'd say A, in low supply of these munitions, and B, desperate to take some sort of victory or win with Pavlovka, this town, before snowfall at this location, which certainly will happen quite soon. Then we'll move across to the Kherson Oblast, where artillery duels continue across the Dnipro River. And it's been said that Ukrainian forces continue to conduct reconnaissance missions to the south bank of the Dnipro River near the Kinburn Spit, the peninsula to the west here, according to Russian sources. Oh, and I'll just quickly add in here, what really gets my goat at this location is the terminology often used for the left and right banks, as it's sometimes referred to, because many sources identify the north bank of the river as the right bank, and the left bank of the river as the south bank. And to be fair, if you're coming from the direction of Russia, I guess that's technically true, but it's confusing. So you can never go wrong with north, south, east, west terminology like I prefer to do, also known as cardinal direction or simply compass direction as well. But moving on anyway, so several explosions were reported at the port of Kherson, so around this area here, on the north side of the Dnipro River, the north bank, which means the shelling was coming from the southern Russian side. But that artillery fire was also exchanged, with Ukrainians taking out 2 tanks near Zelensky, which is this area over here with multiple oinky pigs indicated there, which, indicates Russian forces stationed there. And sadly, 26 Russian troops were lost, let's say, in this Ukrainian attack. But hey, you'll never get Russia to admit that. And moving on, in terms of captured Russian hardware on the North Bank in recent times there. So there's a captured, it's actually an SPG, so a self-propelled gun, specifically a 2S7 Peon. What a behemoth these ones are, in fact, which is basically artillery on wheels, or the tank style of continuous track wheels. And put those two things together and you basically get one of these. Then we'll move across to some news for the day. So reports from the ISW have concluded that Russia is preparing for another mobilization while their yearly biannual fall conscription cycle is still underway. And what did I tell you? They were always going to do this, even after their September 21st partial military mobilization call up. But the problem with Russia doing it this way is the constant trickle-in effect of soldiers that are less and less equipped and less trained with every new round of soldiers pushed to the front line, or indeed the lines, to plug the Russian frontline gaps. And then moving across to some other news. So in some exciting news, railway traffic between Kyiv and recently liberated Kherson has recommenced. So all of the train line infrastructure along the way was fixed and the services are now back online. And I know what you're thinking, you and I both need to inform our local councils to employ this speedy repairing methodology that Ukraine has become exceedingly efficient at. And then we'll move on to some other news there. So Ukrainian President Zelensky, in his nightly address, has said the following, that, quote, Russia looks for a short-term truce to regain strength. And then he went on to say, such a respite will only worsen the situation and immoral compromises will only lead to more blood. So, since it's expected for the Russian forces to perform poorly, let's say even more poorly, in the wintertime, given the environmental conditions associated with all of that, it's likely they're going to look for, so Russia in general, the Russian political elite, Putin himself namely, are likely to look for the opportunity to call an indefinite ceasefire if they can, and get that agreed to. Only thing is, it won't be indefinite. So this guy right here, he makes a good point. He makes a very valid point, and it's good to call it out before it even attempts to happen. And then in another Russian mobilization blunder video for the day. So in this video, we have 10 or so Russian wives of their recently mobilized Russian soldier husbands appealing to the Russian government. And I know, another Russian citizen appeal. So the appeal is basically to say that their husbands on the front line are working with very, very poor conditions. Surprise, surprise, but things like they're being ill-equipped. But most importantly, the wives said their husbands were meant to be sent to training somewhere in Russia instead of on the front lines in the Donbass, which is actually where they are and we're calling from. And this is unfortunately all too common. The official documents, the official Russian military documents say that the mobilized soldiers are in training, but in fact are on the front line instead, trying to survive. And really the larger problem here, this larger ongoing problem, is actually quite systemic due to the lack of accountability for Russian commanders and even generals. Because Russia's military is a very reports-based military. They always say, write a report. Basically, if a commander writes a report saying what's happened, it's generally accepted and not checked, leading to a major lack of accountability. So just accept it as fact. But information or a spiel like this I'm doing right now is for a much later video, really. So instead, I'll just tie it all off with today's funny. So we have more video of Russian abandoned positions showing their living conditions just prior to their, after their retreat. And as I like to say, living in squalor. But what would living in squalor be without a washing machine or two? Or, as I had to replay this video a few times, I believe I counted 7 in this video, potentially an 8th. But it just boggles the mind sometimes how the Russian forces stock up on these things, only to find them too heavy and cumbersome, too large to carry away as they suddenly need to retreat. So that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment, subscribe, hit the like button. Thanks again for all of your support. Really means so much to me. And I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.